go. Hey guys, here we are, the Quiggin Out MMA Podcast. I had to remember what episode it was, so this is number 47. We decided to do something a little bit different this time. As you can see, Nick Ramirez down below, one of the friends of the show, long-running friend of mine. And we've got a new face on here, also just known as Retrograde Mikey, and we talked about this before because I don't know your damn name. So, how you doing, guys?
Not too bad. I'll be honest with you, like, my parents tell me what my name's supposed to be. I don't know if it actually is. I'm taking their word for it. Has anyone seen their birth certificate? My last name's Aaronworth. It's Mikey Aaronworth, but you can call me Retrograde Mikey. That works just as well for me.
So, now I want to go find my birth certificate.
Mine. It's definitely Ramirez.
Yeah. Listen, when I ordered a duplicate of mine, this is kind of a funny story. Mine says the second. Like, it says that I'm the second, but I'm definitely not. So I was like, I don't know who did the typo, but I'm hoping one day that's not going to come back and be like, oh, there's a lot of debt in Quiggin's the second's name.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, that's I would look into that now, because I'm thinking maybe you have a twin or like an older brother or something like that, someone who didn't quite make it. You got to ask your parents about that. That's a story. That's a podcast in and of itself. That's like Serial in the modern day.
Absolutely. Well, I brought everybody on here. You know, we talked everything about what we want to, discuss, because it's normally an MMA podcast, but we're going to discuss MMA. We're going to discuss bare knuckle. We're going to discuss boxing, and we're going to discuss video games and pop culture. And if anybody can identify the picture that's behind all three of us, you get 10 points, who are not on the show, because as soon as Mikey saw it, just went, hell yeah.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny about this is I realized, like, so my background, yeah, as you said, Retrograde Mikey, that comes from the name, the Retrograde podcast that I'm on, and we focus on retro video games. But I started that because I ultimately am like a huge nerd when it comes to games, and I almost regret so quickly calling out what the background of this podcast is, because now that I'm looking at it objectively, you have like half of a very tanned pec muscle and a bicep, and I'm like, that's WCW versus NWO Revenge. I would know that anywhere if I saw it. It's like, how do I recognize that based on just a tanned piece of like stretched leather Hulk Hogan bicep or Hollywood Hulk Hogan there?
Listen, it sounds like you've got some demons of your own there. Why do you know that?
I always have. Yeah. And I'll exercise them, whether it's on the jiu-jitsu mat, maybe in the boxing ring, maybe in a round of WCW versus NWO. Who knows?
Oh. I think a jiu-jitsu game would be a giant pain in the ass, actually. What controls would you use?
Ground controls are horrible in UFC. Oh, that would be a nightmare.
Did you guys play, like, not to take over, because if you have any directions please. You want to go, but I know we kind of want to talk some bullshit about video games, because that's the background that I'm bringing into this. But have you guys played the UFC video games?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
In general, I know, Nick, you just mentioned the concept of ground control and whether or not video game controls translate to that at all. How do you think the controls of a UFC game translate to video games? Because I have some thoughts of that on my own. I know a lot of people love it. I know a lot of people are kind of skeptical.
I like, the ground controls, I'd say EA MMA was very basic, and it kind of got it early on.
Yeah.
And then the UFC, when THQ was making their games, their best version of the ground game was when you had the ground and pound, like Get Out.
Yes.
But then when they started doing that whole submission thing and they tried to be like EA MMA, it just didn't translate well. It was just chaos.
Yeah.
Everybody was stuck going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back. And it was like, that was it.
Yeah, you got somebody on the ground and you're like, all right, well, I guess I'm staying here.
It's amazing how much of like a chess game those games have become and how complicated they've been. I've never been able to get into it as seriously as some of the people who've gotten more competitive with the UFC games.
Online,
but I've kind of always avoided it, because in my mind, like if a game isn't translating 1-to-1 with what I'm expecting it to do, I just don't have the patience for it. My brother loves UFC, and he got the newest UFC game, UFC 4, and he messaged me at like 2 a.m. one day, and he was like, Mikey, I was about to throw this game in the fucking pool. I ejected it. I was going to snap it in half. I thought maybe you'd want it, but I had nothing to do with this game. He's like, you play this. I played for 2 hours. I wasn't able to win a game, this and that. And I was like, okay, that's pathetic, but still. So he literally, he bought the game. He spent, it's Canadian, so probably like $200 Canadian for this fucking game. And then he gives it to me the next day, and it just kind of sits on my shelf. And now I'm too intimidated to play it. I love UFC. I love video games, but I've just never thought that the crossover's been there.
Yeah. Yeah. It is some directions they tell you to press and push to do something that in real life wouldn't be that direction. Makes no sense.
Yeah, it feels a little arbitrary. It feels like a quick time event in a lot of ways, like a God of War quick time event where it's like press triangle to gouge out this Medusa's eyes. And I'm like, what? Wait, what? I've never pressed triangle in my life to do that. I've used my fist for it. And now they expect all this stuff from me. It's now I know oh, there you go. Oh, okay. Yeah, Matt's got his Kratos figure there. I've been a huge fan of God of War for quite a long time as well. Actually,
I still will argue with anybody that says that God of War does not belong in the top 5 ever.
Are you talking as a franchise or as the most recent game release?
I would say the most recent game release, just because they changed the whole aspect of it. Like, it wasn't just like, okay, button mash, do this, do that. Like,
and a cool mythos.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they did a really good, and I'm really looking forward to what they're doing with Ragnarok. And I'm glad they're not rushing it, because everybody learned with Cyberpunk, you don't do that shit.
Here's the thing. Let's stop rushing games. They're complicated. They're complicated as shit.
How about the GTA redo for the Switch?
Oh, dude. So on the Retrograde, we just did a for the Mushroom Club. We have like a Patreon account for it's like $5 a month. We do
is that like 100 Canadian?
That's at least $160 Canadian. Yeah. That's half of a video game in Canada. We did a replay of I think it was San Andreas of the remake. And you know what? It's fun. Like, here's the thing. Yeah, there's a lot that's wrong with it, because the Grand Theft Auto games have aged very poorly, in my opinion. And all this did was kind of give a fresh coat of paint to one of the game or 3 of them in Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. And people really hated it for not being more than what it was. We replayed it. It wasn't as bad as everyone said it was. It wasn't great. They shouldn't have charged $80 for it.
Exactly.
I think the thing is now we're in this era where remakes and remasters are so pitch perfect. I'm thinking like Demon Souls on the PS5. I'm thinking Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, the remakes that came out recently. Like, a remake now has to actually add something to it. It's like when an artist covers a song. It's like, if you're not adding something to it, why are you covering it?
Exactly.
And Rockstar just came and re-released. They like put a little fresh coat of paint on it. It's fine if you've played the original games. It's just not amazing. It's like, man,
it's like, hey, look at this rain effect. What?
Yes,
is that?
Yeah. But that's the thing. The lighting and the rain look great. Everything else looks fucking awful. So like, it just doesn't mesh. It doesn't mesh at all.
I mean, I'm gonna argue with you there, because I bought the remastered when it was on sale. And it was 3 Vice City. I think it was 3 and Vice City.
Yeah, and San Andreas. They're all in there.
Yeah. And I played the whole damn game to the end. I was like, and I would do stuff, and I'd go, because as a kid, you did not appreciate that the same way that you do now. But also, you're driving and you go, this looks like shit.
Yes.
But I loved watching you and Andy play. And you're like, oh, if you go down the street and you go to the right, then you go to the left, and then you break this window, there's a car in there that's really fast.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. We did, like, it's amazing the sense memory that comes out when you're replaying those games. That's what we do on the Retrograde. If your listeners aren't familiar, we go back and play games that we played when we were kids. We rate and review them as we remember them, like as we were kids, and then we rate and review them as they hold up in the modern day. And we did that with Grand Theft Auto 3. And I thought I remembered nothing about that game, and it turns out I remembered a ton. And it's funny, like, in a similar way, you and I, Matt, leading up to this recording, we're talking about, a few things with MMA, and we got talking about some of my memories with like Ariel Helwani and the MMA media, and how they're just so quick to spoil something that's about to be released in a press release or something like that. And I had this like vague idea of what it was, and you're like, yes, that was UFC 199, or like you said, like the exact thing it was. It was like, that's what your memory is. Mine is more with video games. I do have an affinity towards UFC, mixed martial arts, boxing in particular. And that's that. I'm excited to talk about all that stuff today.
Absolutely.
Well, and it worked out because it's Nick's birthday was UFC 199. So
hey, there you go.
I was like,
that was awesome.
Being a member, being someone who's been in the MMA media for over a decade, you see those things. You see somebody reach out and give you information. The information ends up being wrong after you release it. It's a credibility thing. Nick knows this story. I'll never say who it is, but I had somebody give me information who's no longer in the position that they were. And they were like, just don't put my name on this. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Well, it was breaking a fight. And I had interviewed one of the fighters, and the other fighter I've been interviewing for years. So I put out this release about, announcing the fight for the first time. I get a text 10 minutes later from one of the fighters. Hey, who told you?
Oh.
And so I looked at it and I was playing dumb, and I was just like, I'm sorry, who's this? Because I was like, there's no way this is him.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's been years since we did an interview. And I'm pretty sure I did that interview at Nick's house, which is funny. So, I was like, what are you talking? He was like, come on, man. I know it's somebody in my camp. And I'm like, well, I can tell you it's not. But I can't tell you who it was. Come on, man. He's like, it's not like I'm going to kick your ass or something. Like, that's kind of what you do for a living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, is that like as an added pressure for someone in MMA media? Is there that added sense of like, these guys legitimately could kill me? Like if I'm talking about someone in the video game community, listen, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but like it's rare that they're going to be able to do much about it apart from like code a version of me that they can beat up on their own. I'm not worried about them finding me out, maybe doxing me or like hacking my bank account or something, but like not physically beating me up. Do you ever like, you must feel a little bit more intimidation in that, right?
A little bit. And I mean, to finish that one out, I basically told him, I said, it's unwritten code. If you have a source, you can't release anything. I said, just like if you and I did an interview and you told me you had an arm injury and you said, oh, don't publish that. I said, I would respect that. And he just wrote back, well, we won't have to worry about that ever again, will we?
Oh, no.
And we haven't talked since. So,
oh, shit.
I mean, I wouldn't say there's added pressure. I mean, a lot of the fighters, people have this misconception that fighters are dumb. Fighters are just good at fighting, but it's so funny because, I was thinking about this earlier, and I can't think of another sport where you have as many nerds in fighting. There's a ton of fighters who love anime. There's a ton of fighters who love video games and pop culture and everything else, and they're open about it. It's not something they're like, they're going to open a closet and be like, I have 8,000 Funkos in there. They'd be like, I have 8,000 Funkos. Somebody want to fight? Like,
well, isn't that the same thing as like you see sometimes boxers and they have the weirdest fucking haircuts in the world, and that's because like who's gonna tell them their hair looks dumb? Who's gonna tell Israel Adesanya that his obsession with Naruto is dumb? Because he'll kick the shit out of them. What do they have to worry about at that point, right? Like it's the ultimate form of nerddom. They're like, this is what I love. I'm passionate about it. But do you guys also think that there's maybe this sense of like, I think that when you talk about nerds, nerds, I think very often would be attributed to like the popular conception of like a Big Bang Theory nerd. Like it's only Star Wars and this and that. But you can have MMA nerds, you can have hockey nerds, you can have whatever. Yeah. I think the concept of a nerd, the one thing we all have in common is that we're obsessive, bordering on obsessive compulsive. And I think that if you're obsessive about something like MMA, to the point where you are great at it, you could also very easily find yourself obsessive about the things that a lot of other nerds are obsessed with, whether it's anime or video games or something like that. There's this formula to these sorts of medias that I think attract people who are obsessive personalities. So it makes sense that Venn diagram is closer to a perfect circle, right?
Well, it makes you wonder if they started fighting because they had that obsession and needed to defend themselves,
right?
Vice versa.
right. Yeah, I'm not letting another bully steal my lunch money because I talked about being an earthbender or something like that. Like it's not an airbender. It's like it's not going to work. Like yeah.
So yeah, hey, it's like Ali. That guy stole my bike. Can you teach me? To box.
Yes,
that was it.
Ali he had a documentary on HBO that came out. What's My Name? I think, or Say My Name.
The newest one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it was 2 parts, and fucking hell, the more. Sorry, I can swear on this, right? Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
I mean, you already ruined that one. If we couldn't.
Yeah.
The whole show's just gonna be bleep, bleep.
I was thinking because I listened to your last episode with Sarah, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I heard. Yeah, you guys swearing.
This guy did research.
Not just research, dude. You and I have been interacting with each other on Twitter and all that stuff for a while. So I always, whenever I take to someone's personality online, I like to listen. We were super small at some point as well, and a couple people gave us a shot, and that's the only reason why we ended up getting a decent following. Like it's you do that, right? But no, the more with Ali, what I was saying is the more I listen to this or the more I learn about him, the more fascinated I am by him. And you always have the argument of like Ali versus Tyson and that stuff. I'm kind of disinterested in it. I'm more interested in the fact that like Ali as a human being and as a sportsman is just one of my favorite stories I can ever imagine. I love that guy like I love the fucking Beatles. He's prolific in that way. He just stands on his own.
I'm just kidding.
It's Ali was his virtues.
Mm-hmm.
What he stood for, when he said, I'm not going to war because I never had a problem with that Viet Cong. They never called me what. And then they put him in jail, stripped him of the title, put him in jail. He did it. He came back, won again. And the guy was like damn near unhittable.
Yeah.
And I'll relate. I'll just not to get away from Ali because I will come back to him.
Yeah.
Footwork is one of the major components, period, in fighting.
Yeah. Oh,
if you don't have that, you don't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, and I've told Quiggins this plenty of times. I know. I got to go this way, that way.
No,
we're pointing at each other's. Yeah. It's like the fucking Brady Bunch over here.
Yeah. It's a story. No, Dominic Cruz is probably the closest person that I've seen recently that has had footwork that plays such a major role in his performance, in his striking, in his movement, in his evasive maneuvers and things like that. And Ali was like just a master at that. And then to talk about Tyson real quick, remember on Arsenio Hall's show, they asked him, could you beat Tyson in your prime? And he said, let's get serious. I'm paraphrasing. He was like, no, he's the master. He's the legend. He's it. I would lose. And he put it to rest. He said, I would not beat that man.
Yeah.
I like that, although I do think that there's a propensity for the best of the best to often defer to the next best in saying like this happens all the time. And like I'm a big hockey fan, and like the Gordie Howe, the Wayne Gretzky, the Bobby Orr, they all say the other person. But do they believe it? I think as a boxer, there's no way any boxer who's been considered the best actually thinks they would lose in that fight. It's great that they say that, but yeah.
But see, the problem is too with boxing nowadays. Back then, there was one belt, every weight class.
Right.
Now there's all these promoters, all these different, sectors, so to speak. They all have money in it, and so it's not like the best fighting the best anymore. It's the best fighting 8 or 10 paper champions, or the okay fighting paper champ. That's why Teddy Atlas has pretty much like run himself off of TV. Because he was the only one yelling and screaming about it. Yeah. This is what's killing boxing.
Exactly.
We got paper champions, and blah, blah. And he's so true. He's so right about it. And I love boxing. Trust me, I have like 7 of Ali's previous like documentaries on him.
Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, what do you call it? All the other greats like Manos de Pierta, and Sugar Ray Robinson, and
the Four Kings documentary was fantastic as well.
Yes. Spinks, you know, like
Yeah.
I mean, it's ton. It's I could keep going on. Of course, you know, the Sugar Shane Robinson, Sugar Shane Mosley,
Mosley. Yeah.
I was like, we can call him Robinson. We'll just make up a new guy.
Yeah.
no. I'm thinking of the tall heavyweight / light heavyweight that like had like 200 something fights and then
Yeah.
you know never lost in so many
Well,
years.
I mean, yeah, Sugar Ray Robinson, I think
Yeah.
would have been my favorite. I think I kind of argue best boxer of all time just because he's fighting like every fucking week and like traveling place to place to fight. It's in an era that we'll never have again. I get
Yep.
that. But you
Yep.
mentioned Ali, and not to take over and make this all about boxing, but you mentioned when he avoided going to war and
Yep.
he was stripped of his titles, and the only place he could fight was in Canada. And
Yes.
he fought George Chuvalo, who is a
Yep.
Canadian, an absolute Canadian icon. George
Yes.
Chuvalo has fought Joe Frazier. He fought Muhammad Ali, never been knocked down in his entire career. In the fight against Joe Frazier, had his orbital bone broken and still didn't go down, like waved off instead of falling down. The guy's a fucking maniac, huge heart. He goes around like he's still pretty prominent in Canadian culture. He goes to high schools and tells his story. His story is actually pretty tragic if you've never heard of it. I think his son commits suicide. One overdosed on drug. Like it just a incredibly tragic story, and he's somehow persevered through all of it. And that's just another story from the realm of boxing that it's like, you know, no different from MMA. These people are just cut from a different cloth.
I believe there's two types of fighters. They either know they have the skill or can reach that skill level to do great or to be great, or they're crazy and they like fighting.
That's Roberto Duran. I would say like Roberto Duran is just fucking crazy and likes fighting. I like that guy, man. Yeah.
When you have a story of you're a horse handler and the horse hits you and you punch and knock the
it
horse
back.
out, that's crazy.
It's fucking nuts, man. It's nuts. It's nuts. Now I know you guys have some history. I know you, Matt, have some history with fighting as well, right? Did you? I know at least based on your profile picture, you roll a little bit. You do some jujitsu.
Jiu-jitsu, yeah. I years of watching fighting, and you're going, why isn't he just getting up? Why can't he just do this? Like, why isn't it working? You know, I finally got the chance, and you know, I've got an amazing professor, Professor Mike Geary at Newport Richie Jiu-Jitsu. You know, I've got some amazing training partners, and if I called all of them out, I'm going to forget somebody and upset it. So I love all of you equally. Thank you. But it wasn't until 2019 that I finally got to a point where I was like, all right, I have the time. I have the ability to do this. So I started doing that, and I said, I want a blue belt by 2020. Well, 2020 hit, and we all know what happened. And we got to start training again, and we had to all wear masks. And wearing a mask while doing jiu-jitsu sucks.
I couldn't imagine, man.
But it was also amazing cardio training because you're having to learn to breathe through that. But you're getting like mask pushed up through your nose. You know, I found one that had plastic on it. The next day I had plastic rings on my face. I was like, okay, this isn't working. So I got my blue belt still in 2020, and I was like, oh, okay. So you start.
Congratulations, man. That's huge.
Yeah, thank you.
Nick, are you do you practice much, or is there a specific point of interest for you?
No, I don't practice, but I mean, in my own spare time, I do, you know, follow instructional videos and things like that, and just kind of create muscle memory and different kickboxing elements and MMA workouts and stuff like that. But official training, no, I haven't done some in a long time.
Yeah, it's tough. Like it is one of those things, tough. Matt, as you mentioned with COVID hitting, it was just tough to get back into the gym. I was boxing for quite a while, and obviously, like one of the first things that happened where I realized COVID was a big deal. This is actually kind of an interesting story. I had a gym that I was a part of, and I left that one for this new one. And then as COVID hit, I won't mention any names, but they pretty well renowned gym in Canada. Lennox Lewis had trained there, like some big names.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And he, they went under like right as COVID hit. They couldn't afford their bills. The landlord kicked them out before there were any restrictions in terms of what landlords could do. They kind of like evicted them before it was a possibility for the government to come in and help. And I got a call that basically said, listen, we left the back door open. All the lockers are cut. The locks are off of them. Can you go into the gym? Because I worked around the corner, and go take as many of the valuables out of there as you can and give them to us. And then, you know, whatever. So this is like, I felt like it was the fucking Last of Us, like the video game, The Last of Us. I'm wearing a mask. I'm wearing glasses. I'm still not used to wearing a mask in public. I drive across the corner to this place. I bust in through the back door, feeling like it's illegal, even though the tenant told me I could do it. And it's dark in there, even though it's the middle of the day. It's a boxing gym, but everything's thrown about as though it's been looted. I'm going into all the different lockers, like trying to find valuables and water bottles and this and that. And it was just this bizarre situation of like, well, this is the last time I'm going to train anywhere in a very long time. And then just learning how to train myself in my own place. That was about it.
That was the best thing. I've done that for years. I have my own home gym.
Yeah.
Weights, exercise balls, all that stuff, like in a corner mats. And I mean, wow, when the whole thing hit, it was like a godsend.
Yeah.
Really is. It's learning. You know what I also find about it, not to make this too much about our training and what we do, but the idea.
My show, we can talk about whatever.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, fuck it. Who's gonna? Yeah, no one can tell us what to do. And if they do, it's after we record it, and they can't even change what we're doing anyway.
We come back and just edit it out, everything but MMA. 7 minutes long.
It's a 30-second podcast where we're talking about Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, and George Chuvalo. No, and it's the fact that like learning how to train yourself without other people's eyes on you is almost mentally more of a benefit than going to a gym. Because I know a lot of people want a trainer and they want to go to a gym because they're then held accountable. But that process, that was the hardest thing about COVID, was learning how to hold yourself accountable when there's no one else around. Like, are you going to do that extra rep? Or are you just going to kind of quit on it and then tell yourself you did a workout, you know, like learning that extra step. And I couldn't imagine for us, you know, we're not professionals.
No,
but when you look at like when those first events were happening in was it Saudi Arabia?
Yeah,
they did Jacksonville. Yeah, they did.
Right. When Fight Island. Yeah. Abu Dhabi or Saudi or why?
Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi. Yeah.
Listen, you're thinking wrestling now. I think
exactly.
The bicep is starting to sink in.
Yeah, the leathery Hulk Hogan bicep. When they first started to come back, I'm like, man, you know, in my mind, these guys just weren't training. They were sitting on their couches like everyone else, but obviously they were keeping themselves mentally prepared. They were finding ways to get into the gym. Just a whole different element of the game.
Absolutely.
And people started doing their own thing. You know, I've got friends who were like, I can't train in the gym, turn their garage into a dojo.
Right.
Like, change their spare room, cleaned out their room to do something with it.
Yeah.
I.e. this podcast was born from COVID.
There you go.
Really like, I've got a spare room. I've got time since I'm not going anywhere.
That's all we had.
I hate seeing myself on camera. Let's do this shit.
Yeah, I hung a heavy bag in my bedroom, and now it's just a bed and a heavy bag. And good luck with my Hinge profile on that one. No one wants to come home and see that. You take the bag down, and they're like, why do you have chains hanging from your goddamn ceiling, Mikey? What's going on? And I'm like, wouldn't you like to find out?
That doesn't happen till date 3.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a gentleman.
Date 3 comes, you hang the heavy bag. You just hand her a pair of gloves. All right,
show me what you got. Show me what you got. So how did you guys get into to MMA? I'm sorry if I'm asking the questions, but I'm curious about this with you guys. Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, it's more fun having you ask the question.
I mean, you could tell them, Quiggins, it was Pride FC.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of the DVDs, and I was like, bro, you got to check this out. You got to check this out.
Hold up. Let's back up a little bit here. So I had just gotten into MMA the year prior to us meeting. So 2008.
Yep.
And I had 2 roommates, and they were watching fights, and I caught the Aldo Cub Swanson fight, the WC.
Yep.
And I caught the Faber and Mike Brown fight, and I was like, I'm not a violent person. I was like, but that's pretty entertaining.
Hell yeah.
And then I started working at Best Buy where Nick worked, and we met. And like, I remember, I think I helped you move, and you're like, oh, you like fights? Let's watch this. And we watched like 6 hours at a time.
Oh, it was great. The ego retention knockout.
Oh my God.
On the Brazilian dude.
Oh yeah.
Orion. Oh, I forgot his last name.
But
like he knocks him on the corner turnbuckle and like hits him 3 more times before he even hits the ground.
Oh,
so good.
It was a different era.
Oh yeah, well, you know, the Japanese mafia being involved in that, and then allowing everyone to roid up. They're like, okay, yeah, exactly. And then saying, all right, roiding is cheating. Everybody do it.
Yeah. We'll allow it. You guys get, like, it was a crazy era too. Like, I love the purity of when this first started. Purity is a weird word to use given it's people punching each other's brains in, but the whole idea of like, what is going to work? People were like, the boxer's going to win every time. Like, I'm talking like UFC 1 era where it's just mixed martial arts. One guy in there with one fucking boxing glove on. God damn. That, like, there are stories. I know you guys are familiar with it, but if any of the listeners haven't heard like the oral history of UFC 1, it is what a goddamn story that is.
It also, the recollection of UFC 1 gives me my favorite Rampage Jackson quote of all time.
Yeah.
Because he goes, one boxing glove? What you gonna do with one boxing glove? And I was like,
it's a great question.
I'm not trying to be offensive, but man, when he says, oh yeah.
This book talks a lot about that.
Nick's holding up the Shamrock book, Ken Shamrock book there. Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. That looks like an interesting read, man. That does. And apparently, you guys both have it. And Michael just Jesus Christ, do I need to pull a book
right here?
Here, look, I got a little black journal I can hold in front of there. I've got some notes in there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
To anybody not watching, Mikey just showed us some crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's some crazy stuff. I've heard though that the reason he wore a boxing glove wasn't because for strategy. It was because he had like a legit boxing fight a couple weeks later, and he couldn't risk breaking one of his fingers.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
There's so many cool stories about UFC 1. The pay-per-view ran over, so it was shut off before people got to see the main event.
Yeah.
Gerard Gordeau biting Hoist Gracie's ear in one of the
that was crazy.
So that when Hoist Gracie submits him and he's tapping, he doesn't let go. And you see him tapping, and he's tapping faster and faster and faster. And Hoist is just like, no,
this is payback, baby.
This is
I love that.
And that's even Shamrock. You know, Shamrock was like, I'm gonna beat this guy, no problem. And next thing you know, he's like, what just happened? And he starts, like, he taps.
Yes.
They separate him, and he tries to keep fighting. And Hoist looks at him and goes, like, what are you doing?
He wasn't in his head. It's a crazy image that is. I mean, just like, you know, the onset of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and how important it was. But I always think about that. Like, what do you guys think in terms of the way strategy is going in the UFC? For a while, leg kicks were inconsequential, for example.
Yes.
You know, for a while, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was just one of the things that you needed. Now you cannot fight in the UFC if you don't at least have a defense against Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now you cannot fight in the UFC unless you have a defense against leg kicks. Otherwise, you're going to get chewed up.
Yeah.
Yep.
What strategies are there that we haven't envisioned yet? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I always wonder 10 years from now how different the sport is going to be when people realize these other strategies, because it really was 2 or 3 years ago, maybe a little bit more, that leg kicks became the defining thing in a fight that is going to spend so much time with two people standing up, right?
Yep.
Well, and I think what happened is at the beginning, it was you were really good at one aspect.
Right.
Yep.
Then you got people, as the UFC has progressed and has MMA has progressed, because I don't want to just limit it to the UFC. Then you had people who were good at a few things and kind of good at some other things. Then you have people who are great at everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we're at the stage where it's like, okay, you're great at everything. You need to be amazing at something else over again.
Yes.
So when Jose Aldo would throw leg kicks, that hurt me. Getting at home.
Yeah.
Like, was it the Faber fight? One of those fights, his leg was destroyed.
It was the Faber fight, yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm like, God.
He showed pictures after it. He was sitting in his chair, his lounger or something. They were all bruised.
He was in the hospital.
I
He was in
can't
the
walk.
hospital for that one.
Yeah. And I remember when the leg kicks first started becoming a big thing, you'd see someone chopping away at it and think that every time someone threw the leg kick that it wasn't a big deal because it's like, oh, his legs are whatever. And then you'd see them get carried out of the octagon after the fight. And everyone would be like, why are they getting carried? Oh, this pussy, like what's going on? Not realizing that now is the thing that just debilitates you over the course of a fight. And I constantly, when I'm watching that, I'm like, man, it wasn't 3-4 years ago that we didn't know that was a strategy. So perceive, like, I can imagine 3 or 4 years from now, something else is going to, is it like the fucking pinky tap? Someone's just going to grab a pinky and wrench it the other way? Like, is that what it's going to be? I don't know.
Right now it's those oblique kicks.
Yeah.
Like that just destroy your leg. And to talk about the leg kick and walking off on a stretcher, one of the friends of the show, Ian McCall, when he fought Dominic Cruz way back when, Dominic broke Ian's leg and Ian was still fighting on it. Yep. And it wasn't until he sat down in between rounds that he went, ow.
Oh yeah.
Like, whoosh. Like, yeah, not good. So that adrenaline's just pumping. And I think you're right. What is going to be the next thing? And I don't think there's going to be a singular one. I'm still firmly convinced, and I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, that people who fought John Jones did not use leg kicks enough.
I agree with you.
Pencil thin legs.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, and look what happened when someone kind of did. He got carried out of the, like, everyone was like, why isn't John Jones doing anything? You know, and he just, and he gets carried out of the octagon. And that's kind of what I was thinking, where everyone's like, how is this guy getting carried? You won the fight and you're getting carried out of the octagon. How is this happening? Let's see someone who's better at that. And now here's the thing. You know, John Jones, I think everyone, he's almost like the Floyd Mayweather of fighting, not because of his credentials, but because everyone kind of likes him, but also wants to see him lose because he's not a great guy.
Yeah, but I think that was McGregor, and then everybody saw him lose a bunch, and they went, okay.
Yeah, McGregor, man. I mean, that's a whole other story. I mean, he's where does he go from here? What do you guys see his next fight being?
The alleyway.
Yeah.
Do you think is there a Diaz fight in his future? I'd be okay seeing that.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
He just calls out whatever he wants, and when Dana gives it to him sooner or later if it's gonna put asses in.
So how do you reconcile this though? Because I agree with you. I want him to go away. I want him to go away, but I'm the first one to fucking line up to spend my money to watch him fight.
If he's on the card, whatever. But my whole thing is combat sport, boxing, everything. It's supposed to be the number one contender versus the person with the title. Period.
Yeah, I agree.
This whole jumping the ladder because you run your mouth and bend his girl over and take her in the this guy's father series is that type of mouth, that type of stupidity that's ruining the sport, unfortunately.
I agree. That's why I love like Kamaru Usman is my favorite active fighter right now.
Absolutely.
And here's the thing that baffles me about him. Hates him, but then you wonder why. Why do people hate him? People hate him because they think he's boring, right?
Oh, well, too bad.
But here's the thing. He was quote unquote boring in the way Georges St. Pierre was boring, in the sense that he was a great wrestler. He could slow down the fight and win on points, and he was okay with that. Well, what baffles me about him right now is something that Georges St. Pierre never did, except maybe in the Bisping fight. But is now Usman is saying, I will take what you're saying the other fighter's strength is. I'm going to take that and I'm going to beat them at that. He had no business taking a second fight with Masvidal and throwing with him. Why would you do that? Masvidal could potentially knock anyone he fights out. And Usman is like, I'm going to get everyone's respect, not by talking shit, but by beating everyone at their own game. And that's what I love about him.
Yes.
Well, GSP actually did the same thing, because when it came to Koscheck, they were like, who's going to be the better wrestler?
Yeah.
And GSP stood with him.
Yes.
When it came to who's going to be the better striker, or the ground game with, Jake Shields, like GSP was still taking him down and going, okay. GSP until the Bisping fight, when he came back and won the middleweight title, he hadn't finished anybody since UFC 94.
Yeah.
And that was when he fought BJ Penn and his corner threw in the towel.
Right.
Yeah.
So people want finishing. We all want violence. And I think to segue into, we could segue into anything from there, but I think that's why Deontay Wilder became popular. I think that's why.
Thank you for going into this. I could talk for hours on this.
But for me, so being friends with Nick, like he'll tell me stuff about boxing. When we had Burt Watson on the show.
Oh yeah.
Burt used to be Joe Frazier's manager.
Yeah.
And he told us that Joe Frazier, so he told us this crazy story about his like niece's wedding, and there was a limo service, and they went out and he rolled down the window and he said, my nephew came in and goes, the guy in the limo looks like Joe Frazier. And he was like, yeah, whatever. He goes, and I walked out there and it was Joe Frazier.
Yep.
And we're like, well, you got to explain this. He goes, well, Joe Frazier owned a limo service. And the guy that was supposed to do this job called out. So he just got in and did
no
the job.
way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is crazy.
That's amazing.
So
people forget with Joe Frazier, like he, after he beat Ali, he kind of, almost without doing it as extreme as Marvin Hagler did it, like kind of stepped away from boxing a little bit. Like he became a rock star in the way that like Rocky became a rock star in what was it before he got his ass kicked by Mr. T? I don't remember which one that was. Like, but he kind of did. Like yeah. He sort of stepped away and was never the same sort of. He like did what he needed to do and stepped away. Marvin Hagler never even thought about coming back. He stepped away and never came back. But Frazier did that and then just became a business person. Like just wanted to make money, wanted to make music, wanted to exist on his own apart from the boxing ring. It was impressive.
Which is smart.
And that to me is the smartest thing to do.
Yeah.
Because MMA really is the only sport without a contingency plan.
Yes.
Like you be the champion, you win all these fights. That's cool. Once you're not the champion, once you're not fighting anymore,
you better open up a fucking gym.
Yeah.
You better open up a gym.
Or you're like Khabib and you start, buy that promotion or buy into that promotion. But then I feel like we went backwards because the main events, Tyrone Spong and Bigfoot Silva, and we're bringing Rashad out of retirement.
I know,
I have
man.
the utmost respect for Rashad, but I don't want to see him get knocked out again, man.
No. It was the same thing. I remember watching Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, and like even back when Chuck Liddell gave his like his press showing of like he was hitting the pads, and I was like, this guy, it looks like it's his first year throwing punches. Like I know he's got a bad back and everything, but I was like, this isn't good.
That was Holyfield. Like that was
man,
my God.
It's it's bad. You don't want to see that. These guys are legends. Just let them go out. But if they don't have any way to make money and make a living off of like, people think like, yeah, you make $1 million payday off of a fight, whatever it is. That's not enough to last you the rest of your life, especially when you're spending money as though you just made $1 million payday.
You have to pay all the, the manager, the gyms that you trained at, the people you called in to train with. It's a lot of money that gets out of their pocket the second they make it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you talk about those $50,000 bonuses. I've had fighters been like, okay, so after all that, I made $2,500.
Yeah.
And they're like after taxes and this and this and this, and you're like, well, damn. Like,
yeah. Well, is it Andrade, the fighter who they found had like a secret OnlyFans account? Jessica Andrade?
Oh, she has one, but there's some others, but I don't think it was a secret though. She kind of put it out there
like, hey.
But wasn't the reason for it that she just didn't make enough money as a UFC fighter, like she had to supplement, or was this? I could be wrong. I thought it was that
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it either. And it's not helping that Paige Van Zant's going out there going, I made more money in my first year of OnlyFans or my first month of doing this than I did my entire career. And I'm like, that's not a good thing.
That's not good.
Like, that's not what we want to hear.
At what point does Dana take action on that? And I know it's not just I know we're using, like, I'm using Dana as an umbrella term, but we all do. But it's got as an organization, you got to look after your athletes at a certain point, right? Like these guys and girls are putting themselves in situations that are life-threatening. I mean, we're all getting a ton of enjoyment out of it. Apparently, that just the gulf between like the best of the best and mediocre. It's like there's money only for the best of the best. If you're mediocre, you're forgotten, and if you're low of the pack, then you're making more money than you'd make minimum wage, but like you're still not making a ton.
Absolutely.
But are you? So I'll let Nick take this one first because I've got an opinion on that one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think Dana does anything. I think at this point, they were still putting on shows and doing things, but how much money were they really making while there were no fans in the audience? I think he's calling it damage control. Right. He's like, oh, you're not making enough money? I could let you go. I understand if you want to go make money somewhere else. I don't want to lose you. I'm sorry. But and then in the back, he's probably like, yes, another one off the payroll. Okay, let's see what else can we get rid of? You know what I mean? And then, I mean, the UFC I thought it was first it was like the UFC cutting people, and it made sense. It was people who had like no wins in their last 6 fights or 5 fights or, which is okay.
I'm going to bring up Sam Alvey.
I know. Exactly. He always smiles.
We love Sam Alvey.
They start cutting, sending people. Then all of a sudden, WWE is just like, what is happening with them? Are they reselling? Are they getting it? It's like every week, 5 people gone, 5 people gone, 5 people gone, 5 people gone.
Right.
And they have like nobody. They just have all these NXT people and a couple like mainstream superstars. Yes. And that's entertainment. That's different. That's not let me not. I respect them too. They go out there and they put their bodies on the line every single night.
I know what you're saying, though. Yeah. I know what you're saying. It is different, and it's crazy. It's crazy that we're treating a legit combat sport as entertainment. But as you said earlier, it's not always about the first versus the second. It's not always about this. Is the Canadian of me coming out.
Listen, I made it by the 46 minutes without doing it. I thought
100% true. We say a boat like we can't help it. It just happens. Like when South Park does it, we're like, do our heads fucking flap like that too? Like I didn't even realize we did it. But it's not. UFC is not about the best versus the second best. Yeah. It is often about the fight that's going to get the most pay-per-view buys. And it feels like, I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, but the thing that might help that not the organization is in the UFC, but the fighters is a union. Like, you hate to see coming from a video game background, people want the video game developers to unionize as well, because they're often very mistreated. Crunch is like an industry standard term for like 100-hour work weeks close to the release of a game. It just seems like there is money coming in, and it doesn't seem like it's always going to the right people. Dana White goes on Instagram and shows this crazy, like he's in Houston and he's showing this hotel room that he has that has a fucking basketball court in his hotel room next to a club in his hotel room. And yet Jessica Andrade is on OnlyFans trying to make a living. What the fuck, dude? Change something.
Yep. And what's crazy is she was doing that and she was like 2 or 3 in her weight class, like ranking.
Yes. It's not like she's a nobody. She's a name where when I heard it was her, I was like, oh, a different Andrade, of course. Like not the person I'm seeing fight every 4 months. Like it's not that person.
That's the monster who, first of all, I don't know how she cut to 115.
Yes.
Or 125. At 35, she was scary.
Yeah, she's like
she was even scary.
She's like the Paulo Costa of her division. Like she's
absolutely
just
like when she fought on 199, when she fought Pena and just like destroyed her, ran across the octagon and just laid her out.
Yeah, she's exciting, man. I'm always excited to see her fight.
Yeah,
I love that you did bring up the Paulo Costa, because I think for his last fight, he should have been fined 40%, because the fight was at 185, and then he said, "Hey, man, let's do 195," and the guy was like, "Yeah, sure, that's fine." And then he said, "Yeah, I can't make 195. We got to do 205." I go, that to me is 20% each time.
And then he still lost. What are you doing? What are you doing? We thought you had a chance against Adesanya. What are you doing, Costa?
No, that Adesanya, while that falls way under the realm of entertainment more than skill, when he did that little move at the end of the Costa fight, that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. That goes along the line of Tito getting spanked by Randy Couture.
Oh yeah.
And Tito goes, "You tapped," and he was like, "No,
I tapped that ass, baby. That's what I did."
So I had this crazy idea because you brought up the fighter pay.
Yeah.
The other day of how the other organizations are going to help the UFC in the long run, and I say this now. So the fighter pay is never going to get adjusted. It's not going to.
Yeah.
I even saw something today. I want to say it was MMA Fighting. I'm sorry if it wasn't, but they talked about getting rid of like the $50,000 bonuses because there's no standard for it. It's just like you. And I'll say right here, right now, Nick and I already talked about it. The Cheyenne Velismas, because she's not Cheyenne Bays anymore. That fight was deserving of the fight of the night.
Yes.
Seeing Rob Font, no disrespect to him, getting outworked by Aldo for 5 rounds is not fight of the night.
No.
I want to close.
It's cool for Aldo, but it's not a good fight.
Yeah,
exactly.
Give Aldo a $50,000 beatdown bonus. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. But what I'm seeing is all the time, I got to be in the UFC. I've got to be in the UFC. I've interviewed guys that, fought in Newport Richey, Florida, made it all the way to the UFC, and they're like, that's their only goal. Now you're seeing a lot of fighters leave the UFC when their contracts come up or asked to leave when they're on a, Corey Anderson's the perfect example.
Yep.
Like Corey Anderson was on a winning streak, like was doing fairly well, left. Bellator offering $1 million payouts, PFL offering $1 million payouts. Here's what I think is going to happen. We're going to see a lot more fighters go through those organizations.
Yep.
We're going to see a lot more fighters get those bigger payouts because even not winning the finals, like there are fighters who told me they fought 4 times for PFL and made more than 8 UFC fights.
Well, can I use this is kind of a, I'd say inside baseball, but it's hockey. It's kind of a nerdy example, but
by the way, the Lightning won.
Yeah, the Lightning. I know, Matt. You've got a Lightning poster in your background there. Nick, I'm not sure if you're much of a hockey fan yourself. I see a lot of memorabilia.
I watch.
So around the time that just before Wayne Gretzky was entering the league, the WHA was trying to become the league that would challenge the NHL, right? The NHL as the big league. The WHA is a fucking footnote. It's nothing compared to what the NHL is now. But what they did was they looked at the way that young players were being paid in the NHL, and they offered contracts that were lucrative compared to that. We're talking about the NHL knowing that they're the only game in town. So what they did is they basically said, we'll give you $20,000 a year, like not even that. It was like barely livable wage for the NHL. And they're like, you play 3 years here, you sign a contract, so you can't sign anywhere else. Yeah. By the time you're later on in your career, maybe you'll make something. The WHA came along and they're like, we'll give you $100,000. Get some of your friends, come play for us. And we're going to be the biggest. We're going to have the biggest names. We're going to take some of your older players, some of your younger players, and we're going to show the NHL that, like, hey, if you're not willing to pay these guys, they're going to want to come to us. And they did. And the WHA unfortunately folded as a result of that, because they spent too much, and it was they couldn't manage it. But in that process, in that 7 or 8 years that they were managed, like they were a thing, the NHL had to change all of their standings. They had to find a way to pay younger players what they deserved. They had to make it so that older players got the potential to make more money, and it changed the game of hockey forever. Now, I'm not saying one of these other promotions are going to take over UFC, but one of them is going to start offering more money, and fighters are going to go there, and then that's going to change the landscape forever.
Well, and here's why I think it's not going to change it. And this is the weirdest thing. It's going to make better fighters.
Sure.
So you get these fighters who get into the UFC, they're making $15,000, $20,000 for a fight. I'll never forget talking to Dave Rickles when he was in Bellator, and he had 4 jobs, and he was training, and he was fighting.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Crazy, man.
He's, I've watched, but he worked his ass off for everything. But what I think we're going to see happen is we're going to see those guys, because they can't dedicate the amount of time they need to in the UFC. They lose a bunch of fights. They get cut. They got to figure it all out again. They go to these other organizations, and they're still fighting pretty high competition, but it's not the same level.
Right.
It's no disrespect to anybody, because you've got a lot of these guys who were, world title challengers and everything like that, doing really, really well. And I think what you're going to see is they're going to go to these other organizations. They're going to win a tournament or get higher up in the tournament. They're going to get money. So let's say they make it to the semifinals of the PFL tournament. They make $500,000. That's life-changing.
100%.
They don't have to work anymore. They can dedicate more time to the gym and focus on their life. Gets them back into the UFC.
That's
because
a great
now
point.
they're saying, I've got the money in the background. And I've been thinking about this for weeks, and I haven't said it out loud to anybody. So
that's a great point. No, I'm watching. There's this Netflix documentary called Bad Money, and or Bad Sport, or something like that. And there's this one,
and all of that. Yep.
Yes. And there's this one that I watched about a race car driver who basically just like had to smuggle drugs to fund the ability to race. He didn't want to smuggle drugs, but he needed the money to do it so he could focus on that. And if that's what it takes, if you don't have to smuggle drugs, if you can focus on fighting, it's just not in as prolific an organization as the UFC, but it gives you that nest egg to fund training camp for the next couple years.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love it.
And that's what I'm saying. Cause at that point they start to fight and they go, I don't care how much I'm getting paid. I'm winning.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm moving up the ladder. I'm solidifying myself as a formidable person in this organization.
Right.
Somebody they want to keep. Nick had mentioned the WWE cuts. They cut a lot of people. I was blown away. And, I grew up watching wrestling. We've talked about this before. Like, I'm not going to lie. I love seeing Sting wrestle still. Favorite wrestler growing up, and seeing him now, it's fantastic. But you cut guys like Bray Wyatt, who I think were one of the most interesting characters that have come out of that organization in 30 years.
Yep.
Now, let me ask you this. Because I'm not as into wrestling as I was back in the 90s. Like I was like Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Goldust, I was big into it, but in a different era.
I mean, Goldust is still wrestling, so
you're right, and so is his kid, right? Like he's no, I'm thinking Dusty Rhodes and yeah. No, but would there be anything to this? And I don't understand the business as well as you guys do, nor do I understand it as well as Dana White, obviously. But the WWE has NXT. Would it make sense for the UFC to buy almost like a quote unquote minor league organization in which they can give these funds to some of them?
They kind of did that with LFA or LFC, whatever they're calling it now, because they mixed LFC and RFA together, and it's kind of like a feeder league, but it's not the same. It's not saying and then there's a Dana White Contender Series, but it's like you got guys who get amazing knockouts and not get a contract. So I'm like,
I think the problem with it is they have this tired and true system that they will do that, and at first it kind of does that. Like WEC was originally, they didn't have those weight classes, so they're like, here's something that is out there that does this lighter, and then they said let's buy it, and then they go, now come into our organization. Same thing with Pride, let's buy it now. Come into. If they could create a Pride and have a Pride right now, all you need to do is put the emblem with the lightning strike in the hand and play that music, and I'll be like, take my money.
Yeah, right now.
But they won't do it.
No, what we get instead? We get Triller bullshit.
Oh my God, Triller, fucking hell. God damn it, dude.
So we talked about this, and
Nick Cannon,
I'm sure somebody made it.
What are you doing there?
Frank Mir looked like he was about to get finished in Mortal Kombat. He was literally standing there.
Yeah,
and I'm like, stop the damn fight.
Yeah, I'm surprised the other guy didn't rip his hood off and blow fire at Frank Mir. I thought it was happening. I thought it was going to happen for sure.
Teddy Atlas said it best with his response on his Instagram and his Twitter and all that. He said, that's what happens when you have an active roster heavyweight boxer fight a retired ex-UFC champion. He said, what do you think?
What are you doing? What do you expect is going to happen?
Oh, yeah.
Totally. I mean, I hate this whole thing of the mixing of these sports.
Oh,
because it just feels like some freak show. Like, I don't want to watch a baseball player play hockey or a hockey player play basketball. I want to watch a hockey player play hockey. People don't understand that just because there's a chance you're going to get knocked out, just because it's a combat sport, does not mean boxing and mixed martial arts are the same thing. Let's keep them separate. Let's stop doing
boxing in mixed martial arts, but not boxing as a sport.
Right.
And we'll use this to kind of segue, but I want to bring up one thing, and I'm still mad about it. They came up with a list. They asked a bunch of fighters, the top 5 boxers in the UFC.
Okay.
And Daniel Cormier put James Toney as his number 1 because he fought one time.
Oh, no. It hurts my head. I don't want to think about it.
And that was UFC 118 against Randy Couture. Randy Couture literally ankle picked him, dropped him, and literally. But I went, how are you like? You didn't get the question.
You know what? No, DC is smarter than all of us. He knows exactly what the fuck he's doing, and he did that on purpose to troll us. I guarantee it. Yeah.
So going back to the mixing of things that don't belong, we obviously have the Logan Paul. I don't even remember which Paul it is. That's how little
I know.
It's all Paul
and
brother.
It's happening 20 minutes away from me, and I still don't care.
Yeah. Good.
But now you have Tommy Fury's out, Tyron Woodley's in. And if you rewatch that first one, there's no way you could pay me any amount of money to not say that fight was fixed. I'm sorry.
It was here's the thing is like fixed. I just don't know that. I think there's an element of I think
maybe not fixed was the right word, but
like the no knockout clause.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Then it's not a fight.
Let's use the Mayweather and Logan Paul fight as an example.
Exactly.
Like you are so stupid. You are so fucking stupid if you think Floyd Mayweather couldn't knock out Logan Paul. You are so stupid. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yep.
And the fact that he held Logan Paul up for the whole fight, and that's fine. It's okay. Like, we get it, but don't pretend that Logan Paul had a chance in that at all. The thing about Tyron Woodley in this fight against Jake Paul is like, as much as I hate to admit it, Jake Paul is not an awful boxer. He's not as good as most amateur boxers, but he's not an awful boxer. Tyron Woodley is smaller than him and is a UFC fighter. And the second I knew he wasn't going to win that fight is when he came out in the first one. And I hate that I watched this, and I hate that I have an opinion on it, but I do.
I watched the Triller fights. I'm not even going to lie.
I hated it.
I needed to watch the circus because
you had to.
We were watching.
It's not the circus. That's the freak show. That's the freak show, not the circus. But it was when Tyron Woodley came out and threw some crazy overhand right to open the fight. And I'm like, oh, right. I forgot. He's not a boxer. He doesn't understand what boxing is. And that's what we keep getting.
There was, where I work, there was a guy who's about shorter, about 5'7" or so. He said he fought in RFA before it folded, and he was their light heavyweight champion at a time. And he transitioned to boxing. This is kind of cool because I was like, oh, let me hear this. He said the thing he learned was, number one, this is all you can use in that boxing ring besides your movement and your cardio, your conditioning. He said there's a big effing difference in a minute between the rounds versus the 30 seconds.
Yes.
And those 3-minute rounds, they are going full blast all 3 minutes.
Right.
He said his cardio is much better now than it's ever been, even with all the MMA training he had, which was like to the wall, 20, like going. He was like, it's hard to describe, but it's different. And
that's crazy because I box. I've never done MMA, but I watch UFC and I see 5-minute rounds and I'm like, these guys are fucking maniacs. I imagine it has to be worse.
Yep.
But you're saying that he's saying that boxing is more difficult, eh?
Was so hard for him.
Oh, it took 63 minutes for an A.
Hey, I guarantee you I would have said A earlier. I say A a lot. Maybe you missed it, but I say A. That's another thing, like, unironically.
Everyone's like, shut up, they're talking boxing.
That was a grade A joke, by the way, Matt.
Yes. It was amazing to hear that from him. I was like, really? Okay, And he said, the time. You got to remember lactic acid, all of that stuff. You're sitting on the stool. You have you're used to your breathing for that whole 1 minute.
Yeah.
Even though it's 3 5-minute rounds.
Right.
Versus 30 seconds. And like, that's, when you're an MMA fighter, you first get into the boxing ring, you're like, oh, okay, here's the minute.
Yes.
And you haven't been trained that, and you sit,
Yes.
and then you're like, well, I got to get up now? Oh,
you don't catch your breath before that. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
I guarantee that's not something they go over either. I'm sure they're not like, hey, just so you know, you have this. And talking to any of the bare knuckle guys with the 2-minute rounds, they said the same thing, because you fight 5 2-minute rounds. So it's the equivalent of 2 rounds in MMA.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But they go, you've got these guys who are like, okay, I've got a couple minutes to feel it out and really like get into it. Oh shit, it's the 3rd round.
Yes.
I got to start doing something. And you'll see that a lot in the guys that come from MMA to bare knuckle, is they either go balls to the wall right out, or it takes till like round 3 for them to go, oh shit, I got to do something.
Well, I've been fascinated by this idea of bare knuckle. Like, help me understand this.
Shorten careers. Period.
Right? Like, what
I don't necessarily agree with
people
that.
like blood? Like, what is the difference?
Hands, yes.
What is the difference in like, why that over boxing or over MMA? Is it just because people like to see cuts more? Yeah?
I think so.
Matt, what do you think? You look like you disagree. That's my interpretation, but
yeah.
At first it became the conversation of, this is where fighters go to die. And I don't mean literally die, but it was like the end of their career.
There is one guy who did die.
Oof.
No, that was in boxing though.
No,
yeah,
fight. Yeah, he shouldn't have been there though. That was his fault.
No.
Should not have been in that ring.
No,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, you don't see it in the ring.
Well,
Dylan Kleckler is probably one of the scariest heavyweights on the planet.
Yes.
And he only has 1 loss on his record to Alex Nicholson, who is another scary dude who used to fight at 185.
Absolutely.
And his dad was like, he was 217 in high school. Like, I don't know why he decided to go down in weight. And has fought at all 3 weight classes. So middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. And he was the only one who beat Kleckler, but Kleckler is a monster.
Mm-hmm.
The dude's almost 40 and he just moves like he's 25.
Huh.
So
you know what?
Let's watch any of his island fights.
Let's have him fight Jake Paul. Like,
yes.
What do you guys do?
Knockout clause.
That's the thing is that's what I hate so much about those fights is it's so clearly like Ben Askren. Like, yeah, of course, everyone knows Ben Askren doesn't know how to throw a punch. Why are you fighting him? You're boxing, where the only thing you do is throw punches. Why are you fighting Ben Askren? Let's throw Max Holloway in there. You want to box against a UFC fighter? Let's see how you do against Max Holloway.
Yeah, while he punches you and talks to the commentators.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that, dodging and
exactly.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was fucking. I love watching his fights so much, man.
Yeah, because Max is somebody who's entertaining, who's skilled, and doesn't have to talk shit for you to like to watch him fight.
Yes.
Yep.
Max loses. When Max lost to Dustin Poirier, Max said he was a better man.
Yeah.
That's it.
Love it.
That's the end of the conversation. You've got Conor who's like, that first fight was a fluke and my foot was broken. And the second fight, my leg was broken. And then the third, if we fight again, like somebody hit me in the head with a lamp.
Yeah. Someone had a laser pointer in the audience. He fucked with me really hard. That's like, here's the thing is like everyone, I get a shit talker. I've never been a shit talker. I like watching the shit. Like there's that heel and babyface mentality. I get it. I don't need it in the UFC. I get a lot of people do. But when you see the shit talker like Conor McGregor, who is unflappable when it came to talking shit, sitting down in the corner of the octagon, yelling at Poirier as he's leaving the octagon, like, your wife slid in me DMs, and like no one's paying attention. It looks like Team Rocket's blasting off again.
Everybody. Everybody's been saying that.
Yeah. It's just this fucking it's pathetic. It's the same way, like I said, like Team Rocket when they just lost and they're like, we'll get you again. Like it's just like, dude, give it up. You lost, man.
Wait a minute. Did you just pull that Pokemon reference?
Oh, I will only ever reference Pokemon. That is my go-to.
The same 3 girls always do Ash's voice. They all sound alike.
They all do.
Yeah.
Like better at it than I'd be.
So
God
again,
bless him.
what did I say about him knowing the most random shit?
I love it. I love it.
Listen, what you say about your first Pokemon is who you are. I love that video. You did. You picked Pikachu? Yeah, good for you. Get out.
Get out of here. Pikachu's
Brock was
worthless in the
awesome.
video games.
Yeah, Brock hitting on all the women.
Yeah, Brock's getting canceled tomorrow. Like,
Oh yes.
Brock, they'd be like, "Hey, Brock, come over here. There's a man with some handcuffs who would like to speak with you."
He would like that. I think Brock would be into someone with handcuffs. He'd be okay with that. We just don't want to go into his Twitter history. I can't imagine that's that's aged very well.
Oh man,
What
that's another thing.
I know you wanted to say something. You want to say something about like your most memorable game experience or getting a game or et cetera, something to that extent, right?
Oh, hell yeah. No, I'll say this. I'll say this. I mean, I could talk anything about games and gaming memories for forever, but what I will say that I think is potentially very surprising for people listening. Like, I wouldn't consider myself a casual fan of boxing or UFC. I'd consider myself a little bit more, not quite where you guys are, but it is my favorite thing boxing is my favorite sport. It's what I watch the most. UFC comes in a close second, but I wasn't always this way. What got me into boxing was UFC was Fight Night Round 3 on the Xbox 360. What a fucking game, dude. What a fucking game.
Yes.
I remember that game. They had a demo that came out before it released. And you were Roy Jones Jr. and Bernard Hopkins, two guys who I was roughly familiar with. But through that game, I learned how good Roy Jones was. I learned of Bernard Hopkins' legacy. I watched all their fights. I learned who Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti was. I watched all their fights. I learned who at that point in time, who a young Manny Pacquiao was.
Oh, yes.
I could not get enough of that game. I loved it so much. And that's what got me into the lore of boxing in general. It made it accessible. It made it fun. It made it a little bit easier to understand, even though to this day, I don't fully understand the Philly shell defense. I would love to be able to do it better. But
I think it's just being able to react quick.
It's interesting. My coach, because I've got a kind of like a tight, I've got a tight shoulder. So my coach at one point was teaching me how to use more of like the Mayweather, like more like a Philly shell. I get the premise of it. It's still, when I'm looking at it, I don't understand what you're defending. Like, none of it really makes any sense to me. But that was when I first saw that, I was like, this is unbeatable. You can't beat the Philly shell defense. And I learned that from the game.
Allows you to counter pretty much. I don't know.
Great for counters. Yeah.
I'm just gonna bring up hockey in this moment. I still don't know why icing goes. Icing is subjective in hockey.
Icing is subjective in hockey. It wasn't always. I mean, in fact, it's more subjective now than it's ever been. Yeah. But at a time, it wasn't, and everyone was just breaking ankles on the boards, and we're like, we got to fucking do something about this. Icing is one of those rules in sports that I think in the grand scheme of things delegitimizes hockey.
Yeah.
On a wide scale, because people are like, I don't understand why I can't throw the puck there sometimes, but sometimes I can. Like,
if I stand here, it's okay, but not here.
But not here. But sometimes if I send it here and someone's not fast enough, then it's not icing. Like, wait, what? How does this work? Yeah.
I touched it first.
I got there.
Listen, it's football. It's fair catch. No,
exactly. There's a little bit of subjectivity. I'm good with it.
Please don't hit me.
Shoot.
I love that you brought up Fight Night because I knew Nick was going to light up with that.
Oh man, what a game.
That sold me on the Xbox. That's why I brought an Xbox, the 360.
Yeah.
I love that game. The only weird thing about it was that magical space in between that you couldn't get close enough. Remember when you would, and it was like this ghost distance that you that's as far as, it'd be like this ultimate dance where people
would weird kind of just like moving up and like everyone's like way faster than they. Yeah.
It's funny.
It's there. Apparently there's a new Fight Night. I think it's round 5 or whatever it is that's in, or whatever they're going to call it. That's in production right now that I am just fucking amped about, man. It's amazing we haven't had one. I mean, it's simultaneously amazing that we haven't had one given the past successes of boxing games, and amazing that we are getting one given how impossible it is to figure out the licensing. Like I've worked, as I mentioned, in sports marketing. Licensing is a headache.
Yep.
In the NHL, we've got the Players Association, and the NHL, the Hall of Fame, because they go back in time to get some of the older players. That's it. You get that, you're good. In boxing, you need to get it's like PGA games, like golf games. You need to get the agreements of like each of the individual people. There is no players union. There's no players agreement. It's just whoever you can get.
Like I was gonna say something, but I don't know how terrible it's gonna sound. So I'll say all I was gonna mention was, what is it, the 2010 Blackhawks that we're dealing with all that stuff right now.
Dude, the Blackhawks, man. That is a, you know, I've on another one of my podcasts. It's a sports marketing podcast, and we have some journalists on and some.
Wait,
some
do you
people.
do sports marketing? Like I didn't know.
Yeah. No, I don't know how many more times I need to mention it, but I do it. Yeah. But that's my other podcast, and we've spoken to some people who have been involved, like as journalists and stuff, and they're like, that situation, man, you don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. It's a mess.
You don't want to touch that with someone else's 10-foot pole.
That's true too. That's true too.
It got ugly. So, well, guys, I don't want to keep you too long. It's getting a little bit late, but I mean, we could probably talk all night, which means, Mikey, you have to be back on the show,
dude. Whenever you guys want. I love talking about this stuff.
Like this was great, and just for the split second, because I went through all the work to find it, I'm just gonna change the background of that.
Oh my God, am I looking at Marvel versus Capcom? Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yes, but the first one, X-Men versus Street Fighter.
Oh, X-Men versus Street Fighter, because I see Gambit on the left, and I see Ryu.
You see the most important X-Men.
Yes,
you see Gambit.
Gambit is my favorite X-Men. 100% he is. He's the best.
I'll tell you what. Two quick stories. X-Men versus Street Fighter. How I got it, because the only real way to get it was the Sega Saturn with the RAM cart.
Yes,
so you can never have freezing or slowdown. I traded in my Super Nintendo and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Turtles in Time. For that game. Ooh. That's how bad I wanted that game. I know. Wasn't it good? I was very young. Wasn't a smart move at that time. And then with WCW NWO Revenge, when I went to buy it, everyone was sold out. So I was like going all over the city looking, and finally found a place that had like 2 copies and paid $65 for it at that time, right when it came out. That was like the best feeling I had when buying a video game.
When you found them, that was great. I mean, it wasn't always the time when games were that hard to find. Sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. Then you could reserve a game. Nowadays, like it is a year out of the release of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, and it's still impossible to find.
Yep.
Let's figure this shit out, game companies. Let's figure this shit out.
I feel like an asshole because I've got one, but
I've got a PS5. I've got a PS5, but I on principle said I won't buy a Series X until I can walk into a store and grab one. But I really want one because Halo's coming out. It may be out by the time this episode comes out. So goddamn,
it comes out tomorrow.
Comes out,
this week.
Yeah.
No, I won my PS5 in a raffle. For $25.
That's not a bad deal. It's not
$25 American dollars. So again, like $5,000,
$3,000 Canadian. Okay, great.
Damn it. I was trying to get oh, damn it. I didn't get the conversion rate right.
It's tough, man. It's always moving, but it's always higher than you think.
Yeah. I think I zigged when I should have zagged. So anyways, Mikey, tell us all about where everybody can find you. Because like I said, it's supposed to be an MMA podcast. We talked about MMA. We talked about boxing. But I feel like talking about all of it now is kind of how it works. Given the Woodley Paul fight that's coming up, match. I guess we call it a match. We don't call it a fight. Like, I don't know. Like, that terminology to me still confuses me when it shouldn't.
Yes.
Like, this is an MMA fight. It's not an MMA match. This is a jiu-jitsu match. It's not a jiu-jitsu fight. And then it's boxing. You're like, these two guys are going to hug each other for 8 rounds.
I agree. I think the lines have gotten so blurred, and it's just gotten more and more that way. It used to be, it was weird when a musician acted in a movie or a stand-up comedian acted on a TV show. Now it's not weird when a fucking TikTok star wraps up his hands against a UFC fighter, and that's just the world that we're living in.
Yeah.
Or I guess a Vine star, like even back in the day.
Oh God, did you just bring up Vine?
Dude, Vine was my shit. Vine was
Man.
that's actually where Logan Paul, I think, got his first start. So, you know, it dates back to that. But where people can find me, I'm over on Twitter at Retrograde Mikey. You can find me there. I've got a few podcasts. One is about the TV show Jackass. One is a sports marketing podcast called The Sign Off, a Framework podcast. And there's one of my favorite ones to record is the Retrograde podcast. It's a video game podcast, as I've talked about earlier. Find me on Twitter at Retrograde Mikey, and you'll find links to everything that I have. And I thank you guys for having me on. Not many people would give a guy with a video game podcast a chance to talk about UFC and boxing, but I appreciate it. I love talking about this stuff as well.
Listen, man, that's what we're here for. And I'm just laughing because I've watched your other podcasts, and Andy always calls you out for making sure you're reading all your notes right. And I definitely saw it right there. He's like, don't mess up.
No,
Okay.
yeah, I'm bad at that. I
No,
like talking
that was
off the top
excellent.
of my head. That was great. Okay, good. I wasn't even reading notes there. I was just talking from the heart, straight from the heart, as Kevin would say.
Well, and listen, you know, this is why I put this up. You know, so
Hey, there you go.
The sponsorship part of it, because I have everything. So La Barba Cubana. Oh, I pointed to it the first time. That's probably the first time in almost 50 episodes I've done that. Keeps the beard. One of my good friends who's also actually an amateur wrestler. I like to call him a professional wrestler. I feel like amateur. He's been doing it for so long. Nick and I have gotten to see him wrestle. Yep. Tons of fun to watch. So just a great company. So if you guys go check him out. Fat Boy Jiu-Jitsu, unfortunately, jumped off my hat somewhere. So I'm not really sure where that is. But I have a pretty cool jiu-jitsu inspired Thor neon belly with Thanos shirt, which is pretty awesome.
That's wicked.
So Tim Makes Knives on Instagram, one of my good friends who loves Forged in Fire and just started making his own knives. So we've still got a knife that we're going to randomly select one of our guests and actually send it to him. I have to figure out how that works if I have to send it to Canada, though. So if you randomly get a knife, Mikey, now you know why.
Dude, I can't afford another felony. I can't afford another one.
I can't go back to prison.
Can't go back to prison. I'm too pretty. I'm just like Muhammad Ali, man.
Oh, God. Bertzo's Bake Shop. Again, somebody, you know, who's got some amazing goods. So if you're ever in Orlando, check her out. And that's how I do that. So, but on behalf of Combat Press, myself, Mikey, thank you so much. Nick, thanks so much for joining in. Santa Nick with your video game. What was it? Video game Santa, though. Like, we never got a close-up of that. Like, that's
fucking awesome.
Like, we went all full out nerd, you know. We had
That's amazing, dude.
Like, I made sure my Cage Fighter shirt was back there because I almost wore my Macho Man cream of the crop. I don't get paid by T Public, but check out T Public's Unmetal series, and they take like Creedence Clearwater Revival and make a shirt that looks like it's by Cannibal Corpse.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, it's so people will be like, that's gross. And then they look at the name and they get really confused. But my all-time favorite is the death metal Phil Collins in the Air Tonight. It's probably the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. So
match made in heaven.
Oh, thank you guys so much. It was an absolute blast. And we'll have you on again soon.
I would love that. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.